Hey guys, Alan from VExpressions here. Today we're going to talk about basic editing on Arsenal, which is on your TD-50X. So let's get started. So I'm going to be going over the quick editing features that I designed into the expansion Arsenal for the 50X. We're going to talk about basically just how to wet the kit, dry the kit up, and also how to warm and brighten the kit up. Those are the basic things. I'm not going to get too much into copying and all that stuff today, but to follow up the previous video, I am going to talk about loading. So if you want to follow along and you've already got Arsenal loaded, that's fine. Just go ahead, put in, go to kit 63, and we will be working with an internal song for this one. So if you need to load Arsenal, let's go ahead and do that real quick. You're going to click SD card. You're going to go to load, which is all. Right here's the important part. Now, I've already made my personal backup called My Arsenal, where I've already changed all my pad settings to make sure that the volumes line up and the pads are correctly chosen and my hi-hat is calibrated. And I've saved that to number 1 here. I called it My Arsenal. However, if I scroll to number 5, just like we saw in the previous video, you'll see Vex Arsenal. This is how you load it. I would just click load here to load it, the entire pack. However, I'm not going to because I've already done the work of doing the pads. So I'm going to skip out of that by hitting kit. But basically, you would go to load, you would go to OK, and then hit the enter button. That will load the entire thing. Let me get out of that. And just remember that you need to go into your, I'll show you real quick, go into the triggers and just align, make sure you tap each trigger and that it matches your pad. Kick matches, snare matches, and go through everything. When you get to your hi-hat, make sure you go over to your hi-hat tab and calibrate it, depending on your hi-hat. So let's go ahead and talk about a couple things before we get started. Oh, let me go back to copying kits. Some people wanted to know, how do I copy in just one kit because I want to add it to my personal backup? You can do this vice versa. You can load our pack and then copy in the ones that you've customized from the Roland kits if you wish. So let's go over to copy, which is going to be Shift and the SD card, which is the copy feature right there in gray. And you're just going to go to, you're going to go to kit. You're going to go to your SD card. And then here you would go down and choose your backup or the Arsenal backup, which in this case, we're going with the Arsenal backup. There's no samples in this, so that this will not be able to be checked. And I would just simply go down again. I'm going to check right here. It tells you SD card, choose the kit that you need and where you're going to put it. I'll go ahead and do this just to make sure that we start from scratch together. 63 to 63. So I'm going from SD card 63 to user 63, which is the module. I'll hit copy over to OK with the right arrow and then hit enter. So I just replaced the same kit, but you can put that anywhere you want. To get out of it, just hit kit. And you can build the pack the way you want. If you've gone through Arsenal and there's kits you don't want and you're just overriding it with user kits, you can actually just go into your personal backup and then copy in the kits that you did decide you wanted to keep. So a couple things I want to talk about before we begin. Reverb and Master EQ. Master EQ is something I thought about last night that I thought I would throw in an option. Let's talk about Reverb. I just want to go over what is there. You're going to click your mixer button a couple times to get to the top page. Then you will go down, I think it's 4, and you'll see the multi-effects section. On the left side is your selection. This is how you select the multi-effects 1, 2, and 3. As you see, I have 2 reverbs here. Now, reverb 1 is generally the kit or certain instruments. It's most likely the snare all the time. Sometimes it's the tom, especially on the wet kits, you'll see it. And then there's some in the cymbals just to give some more shimmer. So this is your main reverb. If you want to turn it down, all you do is go over to the right side here and turn it down this way or turn it up. Of course, most people will want to turn it down. Keep in mind that the reverb is blended in with the ambience to give the realism of the real kit. So if you want to, like if you're on a dry kit and you want to kill the reverb, or you're, let me go to the dry kit real quick. I'll go down to 61, go back in there, and let's look at, see here, I've already turned it off. So it's off on this one. However, if you find a dry kit where I may have left it on because the snare just got too dead, then you can turn it back on right here. Just make sure you're on the first one and just turn it back on. If you want to control sends independently, the button right here, F3, takes you to the send section. Here's how I have everything set up. And it's basically what I said. There's a little bit on the kick. There's a little bit on there for just like a room setting. Keep in mind we're on the dry kit. There's no ambience on the dry kit, or very, very low, I should say. There's quite a bit on the snare, and then the toms are pretty much the same, a little bit different based on the transients and so forth. And then the cymbals are all pretty much the same, again, to give you that shimmer. Let's go out of here, and let's go back up to our wet kit and go back into Mixer again, which will take us back to the multi-effects. And by the way, if it doesn't take you straight there, just hit that a couple times and go down till you find multi-effects, the fourth one down. So that's our sends there. So the first one is our snare and basic kit. The second one is what I talked about in the intro video, which is going to be your hi-hat and your ride. I felt I needed a little bit more dimension there on the in the room because they were very mono sounding no matter where I put them. So I added a very short reverb to give me kind of a smack back off the walls, just to kind of give a little bit more dimension. If you don't want it, you can turn it off. I doubt you'll be able to even hear it. It's so light. But that's what that is. You could just leave that one alone. Really, the first one there for the snare and the kit overall, if you want to edit reverb, you can just simply come in here and turn it down with the level right there. Or you can just leave it alone. Or down here, you can turn it off altogether and just use the ambience of the room. The other thing I wanted to talk about is the master EQ. I was thinking last night some people might want to not warm up the kit, but give it a little bit more body in the EQ. The way you're going to do that is go back in here to Mixer. If you're at the top, just go all the way down to the bottom page. And you'll notice, let me use my arrow keys to show you where I'm at. You'll notice here on some kits, I've added a couple of dB in the low end and the high shelf. On some kits, it's just 1 dB. It's very, very slight. It's used kind of like a Pultec is used in the studio, which is a very long sloping EQ. On the bottom end here, I'm using a bell curve, which is giving you a little bit more of that punch in the low end instead of a low shelf. It doesn't matter. We usually roll that off anyway. But the point is, if you want to add a little body here, and I'll play this kit real quick, and I'm going to show you what it sounds like plain, and then what I would do if I want to add a little body to it. And this is going to be a pretty smashy kit. So that's enough. Now let me show you the difference. If you just add 1 dB here and go to your mids and add 1 dB, it's going to add a little bit more body. I'll play this and then I'll change it back real quick. So if you notice what you're hearing there, smack my phone pretty hard. If you notice what you heard there was you got a little bit more of that smiley face EQ in the default setting that I put in there. If you want a little bit more body, and I can exaggerate it, but I'm not going to. You can play with it on your own. But I can exaggerate it and make the kit get a lot more body, a lot more low end. So if you like that type of thing, if you think some kits are a little too thin, try that trick. And just, like I said, just take up the low bell that you see here that's at 63. Sometimes it'll be at 80. And then take up your mid cut. That'll vary from kit to kit, but you can take that up. Take both those up 1 dB. If you want a little more, take it up 2 dB. I wouldn't go much more beyond 2 dB though. So I put this back where we started. Let's go into kit. Now let's talk about how we do fast editing. When I say fast editing, and this video is going to be the basic stuff. The advanced stuff is going to be coming in other tutorials. But when I say fast editing, I'm talking about wetness or dryness. I'm talking about brightness or warmth, and then offsetting what happens with the volume of the individual instruments as I add those things. So without music real quick, I'm going to show you just an example. I'm going to exaggerate it, so it's going to get crazy wet. So I'm going to exaggerate it a little bit. I'm going to also walk you through what I'm thinking when I do it. So when I start playing with a song, I'm not going to play the song yet, but when I start playing with a song, the first thing I'm going to do is just play and mess with my ambience slider just to see what's going to happen. I know what's going to happen, but then I'll tell you what happened once I do it. So here we go. So obviously we added some ambience, and when we take up the ambience, what we're doing is, we can look in the ambient section here, we're taking up overhead and room. We go back to kit. So when we do that, what happens is we're pushing up the overheads, 2 mics up here. They're bringing up all those transients, which is bringing up your brightness. When you take up the room, obviously it's similar to reverb. You're just taking up the room mics, you're turning them up. So what you heard there was everything got a little bit roomier, spacier, but it also got more transient and brighter. So let's do that same thing. Actually, I'm going to start where we were. I'm going to take it back down. You're going to see me go into the ambient section, and I'm going to take each one up individually so you can hear the difference. Notice that I'll start with the room, and I'll get the room size that I want to hear, which is kind of a little bit off for me right now because of this, but I'm going to get the room size I want, and then I'm going to dial in the brightness, because when you increase the room, you're also increasing the slapback and everything, the ambience of the room, which is giving you a little bit more brightness and a little bit more volume. So if you push both those at the same time, it gets pretty crazy. So to recap, I'm going to start where we ended just a second ago with our slider, and then I'm going to bring it back down to 0. By the way, all your faders should be at 0 before you start anything. And then I'm going to go into the ambience and adjust them independently. So here we go, starting wet. Let me stop there a second. Notice the room. It got bigger, but the transient, the high end didn't get crazy like it did with the slider where both of them are going up. And I can show you that real quick by just adding the overhead. So starting where we ended. So notice adding that overhead brings up that transient, those high-end, that high-end EQ, if you will, the air. And that gets overbearing, obviously. So I'm doing that to show you it gets overbearing. So that's where I start when I want to fast edit a kit. Now, when I'm doing that, and I'm about to start doing it with music, I'm going to dial it in, that section there, the room and the overhead, just like I just did, to get it where I want it to sit in the song. And notice the snare will get a little loud, the toms might get a little loud, the hi-hat is a little bit loud for this song to begin with, but things will get loud. And then you'll see me adjust the sliders to offset the volume differences. So just watch what I do, and then I'll try to explain what I did afterwards. I'm going to be using song Rock 3, and let me go to the beginning of that one and get back out of there. So if you want to follow along, Rock 3 is the song we're going to be using. I'm going to start it, and I'm just going to play. I'm sure I'll mess it up because I don't even barely know this song, but here we go. Got off there a little bit because I'm trying to hear this mic, hear this, and all that mixed together at the same time. Anyway, so what you saw me do was quickly I went through the ambient slider just to see what was going to happen. I probably actually would push this up just a little bit more to give it more of a compressed, kind of crushed room sound. But I left it there, and I felt the snare and the hi-hat were loud like I expected. So I brought those down just about, that's like 1.5 decibels per white tick over here. And the toms I felt were okay. Again, my mix may be a little bit off because I'm going through an interface, but anyway. So that's how I would quickly edit to mix into a song. It's very light. You don't have to go crazy with it. I can go to a natural kit. Let me put everything back here. Let's put that back. I think those started at 0. I'm not really sure. Each kit will start a little bit differently. I can go to a natural kit, 62 here, and exaggerate it to kind of bring it up to that. Now, the difference with the natural kit, I'll show you real quick, is if we go over to our master compressor, you can look at these settings. I'm not going to go through them right here, but if you look at those settings, and then you go up to the wetter kit and you look at those settings, they're drastically different. The settings, the master compressor settings for the natural kit, are to achieve a natural sound. So let's say I wanted a natural sound, more natural sound, but I need to do the same type of mixing again. So let's do that real quick. I'll start with my song at the beginning. I can barely hear it. Probably need to turn it up a little bit. And kit. And I'm going to do the exact same thing again. I'm going to play with my ambience, see what it sounds like, and then I'll go in and custom tweak it. So here we go. So I was able to, not that I'm super happy with that, but I was able to just mainly use my ambient slider and then just adjust for what's going on there. The natural kit doesn't have as much compression going on, and a lot of that comes together and gives you more highs or more lows. So I was able to do the same thing, but with a less crushed compressor going on. Personally, I wouldn't use that. It's a rock song. And I used this rock song, by the way, because I wanted something kind of crazy over the top. So let's look at another kit. Let's go to 42. I think that was the one. Nostalgic. Okay, this kit's a little bit drier, so to speak, a little bit more classic sounding, very deep. We're going to do the exact same thing again. We're going to play with the song from the top, and I'm going to do the exact same thing again. Just notice I'm doing the same things over and over and over. Basically, to dial it in to match a song is what I'm talking about, is I'm figuring out the ambience that matches the song, and then whatever I end up with, I adjust my volumes on my faders. It's that simple. So let's start it again. So kind of got off track what I did there, but I think I added, what I did first was I pushed the ambience up, Usually I try 1.5 dB and then 3 dB. That's your first white mark and your second white mark. I always like to work in 1 and 1.5 increments. The human ear basically hears differences around the 1.5 dB mark. But when you're doing mixing and compression and all that stuff, all the extra mics, 1 dB, you start to hear it quicker. So what I did was I took it up about 3 dB to see how crazy it got. I liked the room, but the overhead, I didn't really feel that it needed to go up. So I brought that back down and I added 3 dB to my room. And then the bell on this one was really, really loud. So the first thing I did, I believe I did this first, was pull down that ride. I didn't really pay much attention to the cymbals. The cymbals always seem to stay pretty good, so I don't have to deal with that very much. You mainly have to deal with the transient instruments. That's going to be your snare, sometimes your toms, your hi-hat, and your ride. The transient, high-pitched things that are sticking out in a mix, those are usually the things you have to deal with. So every single time, what you've seen me do is go to those instruments. I check my toms to see, you saw me play and get usually my snare and hi-hat right. And somewhere in there, I would test the toms against the music to see if they're too loud or not too loud. And I would adjust those as needed. I'm not even sure if I adjusted them on either one of these examples, but there are some kits I know where I would pull those down about 1.5 dB or up to. And by the way, you see me sitting there for a while, barely moving stuff like the snare. This one didn't hit 1.5 dB. It looks like it hit around 1. I know it's going to be hard to see on this camera, but I'm not at that first tick that I went down. I didn't go down 1.5 dB. I went down, it looks like about 1. So yeah, those little tiny changes make a big difference because I've pushed my room up, which is bringing some of that snare out. And I just felt that snare needed to come down just a hair more. So that's some quick editing tips to get you started as far as like ambience goes, because that's usually the biggest point where people want to talk about how do I dry this up or how do I make it mix with music better. That's the first go-to steps right there. In the next video, we will probably start talking about creating a new kit by copying a new kit or cloning a kit to a new spot and then swapping out an instrument, maybe a snare or a set of toms or something. And basically, I've already showed you this part, but what I would do is just put those instruments together, and then you could do the exact same thing we just did here. Then we will get into the artist kits, which is where we're going to start selecting our compression kit, meaning if it's a modern, heavy compressed artist or whatever, I'll go down to the end there to the style kits and probably start with one of those and then copy all my instruments in from another kit and then do the same thing you saw me do right here. Now, before I go, I will say that if you should be doing this anytime you're playing a song. When you pick a song and play with it and you do these quick editings, you're going to want to save those usually. Or you'll get to, like if you play one style, like say you play that style all the time, and you find you're doing this same thing over and over and over. What I would do is I would clone the kit. I would do these changes, and then notice what you change. I changed my room 3. This part I could leave, actually, but I need to adjust this. So what I would do is I brought that snare down 1. I would go over to my mixer a couple times to the very top, and I would just bring down, make sure I'm on my snare, bring that down 1 and pop that back up. So now it's zeroed back out again. And I would do that on this kit. I would do it for the hi-hat. I would do it for the ride. And you're done. Now you have a zeroed out kit again, and you can copy that back over to the original kit if you want. Or you could just keep it and just at the end of the name put custom. I think there's a little icon for custom. So it's that simple as far as quick editing and mixing a kit to the song that you want to play it with. I hope this video helped. I hope you got something out of it. I want to trying to keep them short. I'm sure this one is not short. It's already up to 20-something minutes. Trying to keep these short and do a little bit more of them. So if you got something out of it, please like the video below, subscribe, click the bell because I got more coming. And appreciate you being here. I'm humbled by all the people that have bought the expansion pack. Thank you so much. And more importantly, the kind emails I've gotten. It's been an amazing week. Probably got more emails from you guys than ever before, and I just want you to know that it means a lot to me. I'm very humbled by that. I will see you in the next video. Come visit us at VExpressionsltd.com. You can catch us over on the VDrums forum, VDrums.com as well. And look on our website, the top right corner. We have links to our Facebook page as well. Come see us. Come join our group. We'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.